want to create a tension between the tradition and the innovation. When I start a project, I always want to be the site, right? The first thing, I want to discover the root. Once your architecture form incomplete, you can integrate rest of nature or urban fabric like this, right? Once you like this, you cannot integrate, but this you can. If you look at all my recent work, no one without courtyard. I automatically try to give it more opportunity to let architecture breathe, to catch up the sound, to welcome the wind, to let people somehow, when you go to the darker space, you're going to see all light beyond. If I summarize my architecture language, it's maybe few things. One is sculptural and structural. I hate column beam solution. I want to column frame space for the public building. I strongly believe if architecture is art, you must create a new thing for the people. Some space you have to leave the room for the future people to interpret. This is what I call incomplete integrity.
Hello, Pei.
Hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Vladimir, how are you?
Yes, very good, very good. Thank you, Pei.
Where are you now?
I am at home in Long Island City, so
Oh, Long Island in New York, right?
New York, yes. And
Okay.
and you are in LA, right?
Right, I'm in Los Angeles.
Yes, very
But
good.
sometime I'm in last week I spent time in the Carmel.
Oh, okay.
Right. More like
Outside.
yeah.
The ocean. I see.
Hmm?
And the ocean.
Yeah. It's much, strongly driven by the nature for the town. Less peaceful, it's very quiet. When you try to, write down something or work on the creation design, I think that's the place I always been.
This is where there is a beautiful house by Frank Lloyd Wright, right on the ocean.
Yeah, along the ocean, right.
Because with my family, we went a couple of years ago. We took the car from San Francisco to Los Angeles and we passed by.
Oh yeah, Pacific One Way.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's going to pass my house.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
You have a house there?
Yeah, it's more like my creation, I call the creation place. And more like, whenever I was there, I can pretty much block all the outside connection. I want to focus myself. That's normally what I do.
This is
there.
is amazing.
Yeah.
I have your book here.
Oh, really? Where you get?
Well, remember you were
last
in New
time.
York? And this
Yeah.
was actually your present. So I have it
Thank
here.
you.
And I have my quotes, so I'm ready. And I see that right behind you, there is a whole volume of Le Corbusier works.
Sometimes I always have the few set of a book, maybe in my studio in Beijing, in Los Angeles, the things sometimes I just want to, go through like very relaxed. You're going to see how those great architects to approach their work.
I'm actually, amazingly, I went to the library very recently. I don't have this set, but I went to the library to see one of the books from this set because I'm going to have an exhibition in La Plata outside of Buenos Aires where Le Corbusier did his house, which is it's called Casa Curuchet. And
it's his ocean hub?
no, it's not on the ocean. It's in the park. it's facing the park, the biggest park in that city, La Plata, which is 1 hour drive outside of Buenos Aires. And he never visited the place. He did it, he designed it remotely, but it was the only
Oh,
house
you mean in
outside of Buenos Aires.
oh, okay. He never been, but
No,
he doing the design, you know.
he actually used all his 5 points in that house, which was about
Really?
20 years after he came up with the idea. But in that
Oh, okay.
house, he combined many ideas for the first time, like Brussolet system. It was implemented in the house for the first time. This is in the book from 52 to 57. It's called Casa Curuchet, and it's the only house he did in all of America, all of America,
Oh,
south
oh,
or north. Yeah. And
okay.
anyway, I'm going to have an exhibition there
Oh, great.
in
Congratulations.
October. Yes, thank you.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
am kind of very happy about that project. And I did have an exhibition there before, 9 years ago. And,
Okay.
yeah, so, and I will ask you about Le Corbusier in this interview because I understand that he's your favorite architect, and
Yeah.
I want to know
Right.
a few specifics. But anyway, let me start.
Okay.
So I went over some of your quotes, and one of them really caught my attention. I really love it. It says, a building that's created just to perform a particular function is a dead building. And so this means that in your mind, buildings must give us more than just fulfill a particular function. So I wonder, how would you define that more? What is it?
Yeah, I think I do always think about one idea, which is my 5 point. One of the it's called incomplete integrity. I do inspired by abstract or Chinese landscape painting. The amazing for the contemporary or modern artwork or Chinese landscape painting, they always leave something for the reader or for the future people to reinterpret. For example, like a Chinese landscape painting, they always welcome the reader or visitor to complete work together with artists. I think abstract painting as well, right? I think they give you a lot of imagination to the artist to try to work with the viewer together to complete the work. That's give the art is going to be timeless. Means it's not just built for the one moment, one specific function. They're going to more flexible in the future. So I think architecture is supposed to be, the reason I call incomplete integrity is not only the architecture form incomplete. I think this is one. Once your architecture form incomplete, you can integrate rest of nature or urban fabric like this, right? Once you like this, you cannot integrate, but this you can. I think not only for the physical, the architecture form, but also the program and the content and the space. Some space you have to leave the room for the future people to interpret. This is what I call incomplete integrity. It's not everything defined. That's going to lose the poetic idea. For example, reason we call some architecture, you feel give you a lot of inspiration because you can imagine by yourself, and then you can interpret this space, how to use by yourself. I think this is an all great architecture have this strong character.
Yeah. And let's go back to very beginning of your career, and even before that. I want to ask you a few questions about your upbringing. If you could tell me what kind of family you grew up in, what did your parents do?
Oh, my parents is my father just both is work for China for the government. My father is work for the Ministry of they call more like a planning kind of things. He after open policy, he participate a lot like a trading business. And I think in my family, there's no any the artist and the architects associates. That's my, family.
So what exactly did he do? What kind of planning? You said planning. So what
Oh,
was his
it's more probably after in China all the economy system based on the it's like a plan. They call them
5-year plan?
right ministry some
So he was an economist, right?
right. He worked for the government.
Okay. And so this was some kind of institute, right?
Yeah, more like institute.
And what about your mom?
Oh, my mama is a doctor.
A doctor. Okay.
Yeah,
So, okay. And you grew up in Beijing, right? And
I grew up in
born
Beijing, right?
in Beijing.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
And then I want to know, so what you already said that they were far from art and architecture. So what sparked your interest in architecture?
I think in the beginning when I was little, I really loved to paint, and it's painting is my very special interest in. But one day, I still remember it's maybe early of maybe 79 or early of 80. I went to the National Art Museum. I saw the French Impressionism exhibition. I was really shocked by the Monet, Sechon, and many artists. Oh, I realized I almost no way to do anything about the painting things. They're so extraordinary, and I feel I like to change the things. I feel maybe architects have more, or builder architects have more freedom in terms to change the things associates or involvement and your house, your neighborhood. So I feel maybe the architects is very good role to change the things. And also you feel the you play inside Hutong courtyard, play the game with your small case. You feel a lot of fun, but definitely you also feel the the so safe, so peaceful. It doesn't matter winter or summer. You feel the neighborhood. But I'm not sure if this is really the the things to stimulate my motivation to study architecture. But I feel architects can be changed things that you're going to build something rather than through the mentally. So that's maybe the
And then you studied architecture, which you did actually both in China and in the US. So in China, you studied at Tsinghua in Beijing, and then in the US at the University of California, Berkeley. Was the experience very different, one from the other? And I wonder if you came across any significant professors or professor who impacted your thinking?
I I do. The one of the professor from Tsinghua is Guan Zhaoye, who is very knowledgeable professor. He's the earliest the generation professor was sent by government to the US, to MIT 1 year, more like a visiting scholar. Right, he came back, he showed us a lot of the things we never saw. We never see the, like a slide, the beautifully like loose cons building and surrounding. But I feel the what influenced me a lot is his understanding about architecture. He more care about context, more like a contextualism, approach. For example, when he proposed the library for Tsinghua, he not choose the new site. He prefers, to extend existing architecture, for example, from American architect, the early piece, and then second piece was added by around 1930, it's Yang Tingbao. Probably you know this professor who graduated from UPenn, classmate with Luz Kang. And then he built the third piece. So he really want to dialogue with existing the building and the tradition and so on. I think that's maybe gave me some impact on what, the one-way right open policy. All architects followed more international. The style is more want to build a new thing. But Professor Guan Zhaoye, he more care about tradition, historical context with his, and try to use context to build power of the building, more like contextualism, the idea. I think this is one, but when I went to the UC Berkeley, the Charles Correa is a visiting professor. He taught our studio, and I feel he's so interesting, and he chatting a lot. It's not only very serious talking about design. He always have or the classmate together went to his house inside of UC Berkeley. I remember it's one house always provide for the visiting professor. He and his wife Monica always cooking some food for us. We're talking about a lot, but I realize his contribution is how he transformed the modernism into the critical regionalism, if I use this term, more local, but associates very special climate. I think this is his contribution. He not 100% to repeat modernism in the Indian, but in the beginning he tried. He really liked Le Corbusier thing, right? He tried, but later on he realized the building has to be integrated with the local culture, especially for the climate, hot weather, and so on. I think both people gave me a lot inspiration when I was studying in the two different schools.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people cite his first building that he did in the very beginning, in the 60s, when he came from the US, as his not only his best building, but the absolutely top masterpiece of Indian modern architecture. So this is a memorial to Gandhi in Ahmedabad.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a series of pavilions, almost like a checkerboard kind of arrangement. And And his wife is a very famous artist,
Oh
textile
yeah,
artist, and
Monica is so
Monica.
nice.
Yeah,
Right.
and she actually her career progressed a lot since he passed away. So now she's focused on her own career,
Oh, okay.
and her pieces are in the top museums around the world, like Metropolitan Museum, and
Oh, really?
yeah, there is one in M Plus.
She's so intimate and modest. She not to speak about his work a lot. He always help us to cooking Indian food. I really enjoy him, but almost every Friday night or every other Friday night, we went to his his house. We
Yeah,
discussing a lot, chatting
it
a lot.
it sounds kind of probably similar experience to students in the 1940s when they were studying under Gropius at Harvard. And he would invite almost every weekend that he would invite students to his house for an afternoon tea. And what's interesting about that time is that when they would come to his house, this would be the first ever, in the case of many students, interaction with a contemporary piece of architecture, because it was so rare at the time. You
Mhm.
would be living in major cities in America and never even come across international style
Mhm.
architecture. It was just
Mhm.
it was only beginning to be built.
You're talking about a Gropius, right?
Gropius, yeah,
A Gropius, yeah.
yeah, in 1940s.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Right.
And there are two metaphors, garden and courtyard, that play a major role in both historical and contemporary architecture for, in China, Chinese architecture. And I wonder what roles do these two notions play in your own architecture?
Yeah, to be honestly, garden, especially courtyard, is very crucial for my work. And almost no one of my recent work without courtyard. I think architecture is not a sculpture, not object. They more talking about experience, right? Talking about natural light, the contents, program, wind, space, material. One of the five point of my design philosophy is one is sponge architecture. Is more care about experience rather than sculpture or object. And then courtyard played played a significant role to bring the natural light, bring the wind, to going to give the architecture somehow to dismiss the massive kind of the volume into the blending into the nature. I think this is the reason, if you look at all my recent work, no one without courtyard. I automatically try to give it more opportunity to let architecture breathe, to catch up the sun, to welcome the wind, to let people somehow, when you go to the dark space, you're going to see light beyond. That even a lot of Chinese traditional, the housing is a central area, actually is a courtyard. They not consider this as just for the empty space. They consider this as a living room. They associate with this light. Light is center. Courtyard is center, more like a living room to welcome people, and so on. So courtyard, even for me, based on the contemporary point of view, courtyard garden is going to be the key, spatial element for the architecture.
And what could you say about the garden? Because the garden, the metaphor for the garden seems to be about this idea that a garden is something that's a living thing, and you keep replacing certain plants. And so the whole garden is a kind of like an organism. And, unlike architecture, which is typically all completed, gets completed in one piece, or many pieces, but at one time. But the garden is a continuously living creature or organism. And so in Chinese architecture, this also plays a role, because
Right.
a building is kind of carried from one time to another time by kind of replacing bits and pieces. So it keeps living.
In the Asian Chinese architecture culture, they always consider most important things for the architecture is not just functionality. It's social, is more spiritual. Garden means wandering. You can hang on with nothing to do, but actually you very enjoy. You're going to wandering, surrounding. You have a corridor, roof overhead, and then you hang on here. You're thinking, or you're nothing to do. But this piece sounds like it's useless, right? It's no use, but actually it's played a significant role. That's maybe more philosophical idea for Asian Chinese when they think about what is architecture. It's not built just for the shelter. They really want to create a more spiritual experience.
One of your points that you already mentioned is cave and nest. So what is that about?
I think that the cave nest is very old prototype, right? For the human being construction, the culture, the people start from cave, right? They take advantage from cave, and then they later build a nest. I have a very good example. Actually, I draw the sketch published on the Domus a few years ago. And I use this example, people, living in the cave, and then later on they built the wood structure front of a cave. I think this is more nest. This is also associates sustainable, how people deal with the weather. For example, the cave always stable, right? In terms the associates outside. It doesn't matter how hot or how cold. The temperature more stable, reliable. And then the nest so sensitive about the sun, right? The winter when sun hitting on the nest, they can transform the heat into the cave. So they became to the very interesting. If you look at the old gray modernism architecture, gray work always have these two exist together, not one. The one way is sustainable, where associates intelligent in terms of the climate, temperature, nature. Another way, even for the people, when you want to sleep, right? You really want to somehow space enclose you, not open space. It's more dark, more cave. But when you walk, when working, you always like light, right? You feel the energy. So I think this both way. I would like to create architecture. I want to both. I always think about the only this two space exist to get, at the same moment, the building can be produced. The great experience associates a sustainable idea, also associates people's body mentally.
And you have said, as long as we can understand nature, we will master the wisdom of architecture. if you could expand on how you address nature in your work and also touch on some of the initial steps. How do you start a project? Where do you begin?
When I start a project, I always want to be the site, right? The first thing I want to discover the rootedness, and definitely it's a culture root and nature root or climate root. This is what I always really care about. You know, for example, like a Kiln Museum or the current one museum under construction called Majiayao Ruins Museum. These two museums built, one in the tropical area, one in almost like a desert area. The like Jingdezhen, I care about, you know, like the ventilation. And then I discovered surrounding the traditional neighborhood, they have very small alley and then roof overhead. The house is vertical, you know, like a courtyard. I think that gave you a lot of interesting thought. The small alley, they not want to save land, but also they want to somehow to compress the wind to make wind tunnel. When you walk inside, you feel the shading one way, in another way, you feel the wind going to touch your body. You feel somehow cool in the summer. Things Jingdezhen is so hot in summer, humid hot, really tropical, raining a lot. And then when you walk into the house, the chimney, you know, effect, they take advantage from vertical courtyard. And then wind tunnel and chimney effect, they formed quite interesting, the sustainable or ventilation idea. I think this is the root. This is an inspiration I always want to somehow to rediscover what we can learn from past or what we can get wisdom from a previous generation or previous architecture. And then the Majiayao in very, almost like a desert, they built the Louis Plateau. And then I just use cave and the nest. Local is a lot of cave housing. And then, you know, the building is somehow is use the one big shell to block the northwest wind to catch up southeast sun or wind. For example, I think this is what I can learn, or we did, you know, we can discover a lot of wisdom from the traditional architecture. This is I always start the project from here. You know, like I call the climate root. Definitely, this my philosophy is architecture of nature. It's not talking about Pacific nature. Actually, this is rather than more attitude, how we think about more like a cultural vision rather than Pacific nature. So definitely culture root is so important for the contemporary architecture. I really want to discover too, like Imperial Kiln Museum, right? I transformed the traditional brick kiln into the contemporary art structure form as well.
Yeah, this is a completely different approach from, for example, Le Corbusier, which just discussed the fact that the house he built outside of Buenos Aires, he already had his principles and he wanted to kind of project them. So he never visited La Plata where the house was built, and he just sent to the client his drawings and models, all produced and developed in his Parisian studio. So
but I can make an argument. For example, this is his early career. I think in the early career, Le Corbusier focused about more technology, more revolutionary thinking without maybe thinking local, regional situation. But I mentioned he's after World War II, maybe even this in 1930, his idea turned into the nature vernacular. For example, he built a house. I remember it's maybe in Spain, right? Mediterranean or even Morocco. He really inspired by local, the climate, like arch roof, overhand, courtyard. He built use local material. So I think especially after World War II, his approach dramatically changed. It's no longer 5 point, not only 5 point, but he turned to nature dialogue. He turned to material, local material, more associates climate, local culture, local material. I think his life can be, first part, second part. Definitely later part gave me a lot of inspiration, right? So this is, I also feel very strong about what is architecture. Architecture is art, but this art associates people's, human beings' five sense, more like perception. Architecture supposed to be perceived by the five sense human being. That's the first thing. Second is material. Rich material can be really changed the things. Maybe even the painting. If you look at the contemporary art, in the beginning, the modernism art, more visual, more spatial, more three-dimensional or abstract. But later on, like Bovis emphasized, the material. Definitely also you need the third, maybe you need some create a new thing, right? Create a new experience people. I think Le Corbusier, the later part doesn't matter like Latouvet, right? And Hongshan, Chandigarh in Indian, Chandigarh as well. So much associates local culture, climate, low technique, what is available for the local. He built based on that.
If you were to pick a particular lesson or example from Le Corbusier, what would you mention? What that influenced you, your work?
I think while he considered architecture is art, definitely this is more talking about not only visual art, more perception, right? More experience. I think that's he's understood about architecture. If you compare his work with his generation, it's a so artistic approach. He more like an artist when they approach architecture. It's not based on the standardized technology, but also more spiritual, more artistic, want to create a new thing. I think that's first thing. Secondly, he really emphasized the material reality. For example, different location, he used a different approach. Like Hongshan, he used maybe like a tent roof, right? And then he used the concrete frame, and then he used a stone wall to, for example, he created so many things rely on the material reality. I think these two things that eventually he considered architecture is art. That's big influence me. I also strongly believe so. Architecture is art, nothing else. Especially in the future, if we not consider architecture is art, architecture going to be disappear.
Exactly.
in the future, AI technology, based on this, everything based on the calculation or past experience, they can generate very quickly. Like Design Institute, Chinese Design Institute, the big company in the future must be disappear. But only the architect who is artist, you consider architecture is art, is going to be survival. It's going to be, I think this is the important thing, also important for the architecture education. How you can people, this is not only professional in the future. This is somehow cultivate artists to consider architecture is art.
When you talk about your architecture, you use such words and phrases as fragmenting, layering, rootedness, and creativity, incomplete form. In this conversation, you mentioned incomplete integrity, new experience, and a dialogue with history. So how else would you describe your work, and what kind of architecture do you try to achieve?
I think in general is I want to create a tension between the tradition and the innovation, or I call the creativity. I think this is if you think architecture is art, it's supposed to be like that. Even for the contemporary artist, if you discover their work, actually is the key is they somehow to discovered the past, and then they gave it a new vision, new idea. I think they take the power from the tradition. When we see the older things, you not want to discover the past nature of a past thing. Actually, you need somehow to perceive or somehow to get a perception from for the present nature of the past thing. That's what I really want to. Maybe even Heidegger also mentioned. He said, the history is not means past. Actually, a lot of great things or contemporary things hidden in the past. Even the Le Corbusier always mentioned when he talking about creativity or innovation idea for the architects, he said is this idea or inspiration is nowhere else. They exist in the past history. I think I really want to create a kind of a tension. It's not only just to create stranger things from outer space. I think if you look at today's city, lot landmark building is like a stranger from outer space, right? You feel somehow superficial without a cultural vision, without historical conscious. I don't think this is the right approach. This is not art. This is like a theme park. The building is not a real big architecture supposed to be. So my architecture definitely really want to somehow to bring the rootedness and the creativity together to through my 5 point want to create contemporary things, but also contain the cultural vision, like people to understood and then stimulate people's imagination. I think this is more like a architecture, more like music or like a poetry. For example, I always consider if architecture without historical continence, and then people no way can dialogue feel, since no people don't understand what the concept and what you're talking about. This is one way. And then another way, if architecture without revolutionary idea or creativity, people also no way they can imagine it. They know everything about the past. I think when these two things brought together, we also feel, oh, this architecture have the tension, have the poetry. Let me understand. Will come in join, but at the same moment, you give me some clue to let me to imagine it, what I understanding about this space, use, architecture, and so on. When I give a student talk, I always talking about architecture is art, but not sculpture, not visual, not only visual art. They do have visual, but the most art is more close to the architecture is music and poetry. They leave something to let you imagine it, but they create a path let you in.
Mm-hmm.
I think the music is supposed like that, right? They have to repeat and then they change, repeat. But if always, stranger things, more like noisy, right? It's no longer no order, no, sequence became to the, noisy. But if you no change, but boring, right? Always repeat. I think the architecture associates time. I think timing is the key thing for architecture, means experience. Architecture, you have to really, not only to see, you have to use your body to experience along the time, to discover the more surprise. I think this is a maybe answer previous your question is like a garden. Actually, garden useless, but garden is the key to also to generate people's thought. So I think the architecture is art strongly,
Let me ask you about this idea of incompleteness. In one of your texts, you note that buildings need to have empty spaces and incomplete forms. And you said only through its incompleteness can architecture connect with light, wind, and people. If you could elaborate on this idea of
yeah.
emptiness,
Okay,
incomplete.
right. Maybe I just want to clear is incomplete, not empty. Incomplete space, not empty space. Maybe I try to use the Imperial Kiln Museum is maybe more easier to understand about this incomplete integrity idea. For example, this whole museum is like a theme museum built specifically content the program, is the person produced by the Imperial Kiln factory. I think this is supposed to be very simple, very focused. Okay, this museum just doing this, but I do something more. I bring into the some temporary space, also to preserve the archaeology site, to create a kind of a semi-outdoor, like surrounding the one way is the semi-outdoor exhibition space, another way is amphitheater centerist archaeology site. I also create, many the space is hard to see, okay, what is this supposed to be? But I create a lot of, the room to like, for example, like a museum director, maybe in this year, he has idea. In the future, he want, okay, I want to use space to doing something else. I think that's the maybe idea. And also this incomplete means your space cannot be 100% fully occupied by program. So you leave the room like people imagination. At the same moment, you also, if you too intense, you feel people hard to breathe. You even feel the light cannot get in, the wind cannot get in. You not welcome people come in anymore since you occupied everywhere. People no breath, no freedom. Actually, the reason I want to use wandering rather than walking. Wandering means you can do this, you also can do something else. So I think the Kiln Museum, we create a series spatial dark, like cave, light, like nest, and then outdoor, indoor, and then semi-outdoor, and then indoor again. Up level, downstairs, courtyard, your bag. You know, whole spatial, the sequence became to the so rich. You feel everything. You feel sort of incomplete, even the form, even the space, but sometimes you feel the so rich. You can think about, oh, okay, I'm high on the courtyard, I can smoke, I can see the people work, how they restored, for example. I feel incomplete integrity is the most important issue or idea when I work on the project.
What about this project, Zijing International Conference Camp? This is very interesting because it works almost like Lego parts, or there is kit of parts, right? So you almost like created a few forms that you used in different scales, and then there is a lot of space in between. And where did that come from? So I understand also kind of porosity idea and idea of living spaces in between different parts of the building. But this started from something specific, right? So where did it
Right.
start from, that form?
I think this is I do have very directly inspiration. When I traveling inside Jiangxi, if you take high-speed train, you're going to see your tree going to like this, and then you always see the the hill, the farmland, and then the village like a settlement. They, each the house is a square, right? It's just a cubic, but they use they have angling to somehow to work specifically in the bottom of the mountain. They not occupy the farmland. They leave the farmland, but they build house in the bottom of the hill, big mountain, big against the mountain, facing the farmland, open field. And then they somehow to dialogue with this specific geography. They feel so freedom. I think I really want to reinterpret this village setting or village settlement, like a group architecture, into the Pacific side. And then this, in the beginning, government want to create an international conference center, which is just one big the building, like most of the city, probably yourself, like a G20 meeting, whatever. The big complex, monumental. I said, no, this side is inside the valley. So I want to borrow some idea from village. And then I start to, to use element, more like an element idea instead of a big monumental object idea. So distribute. This is one idea. Another idea is strongly reflecting my idea is a structured form is the architecture form. Things this construction needs so fast. The site is so complicated. In the beginning, this site is like a like a like a driving training school. They already infilled the valley into the concrete slab. They also cut a few pieces of bottom mountain to build the workshop to like the building. But you know, I really want to since this building is so quick, whole structure just modular, just two pieces of shear wall hang on one you know, downward arch. One is have arch, you have long span, right? You can have a big span. Definitely the slab roof, you cannot do that. So this is like one module. And then doesn't matter how big of the building, you know, just the module piece by piece. When the slope go up, you just offside. And then between the difference height, you have light getting into the building. So basically just one structure applied to almost everywhere. But this is really structural oriented architecture, purely concrete pour on site. Inside have a beautiful natural light for the different scale of a conference room, big roof overhead, like a semi-outdoor space. You know, in this tropical area, you feel this building is a contemporary tropical. I think one of the big mistake for us today, a lot of architecture no longer sensitive about climate, nature anymore. We build one model almost everywhere. Maybe this model deal with the desert, like cold area, but even they build glass box in the tropical area. I think this really cost energy waste. This is what I call is architecture no longer intelligent, smart anymore. But if you're looking back, traditional architecture, even like very hot desert area, but people can survive. I'm so surprised last year, spring, when I taught Yale studio, I brought students into the Tucson and inside, you know, Arizona, you see the heritage. Wow, how people survive under such kind of hard weather. But they have smart idea. But our architecture no longer have sense anymore. They just do it and then air conditioning and then waste a lot of energy. So this is reason architecture of nature really want to respond climate change to make our architecture not only future to vision about technology, but also think about a passive way, think about a more smart, easy, intelligent way.
You know, sometimes, for example, I was in Australia some years ago, and I was invited to give some critiques to students. And the space we were doing this presentations was naturally ventilated. And everybody talked about the fact that it's so great and we're not using air conditioner. It was so hot. I could not concentrate on the work at all.
Right.
It was just too hot.
Yeah. But we need a comfort. But I think a passive idea can be really balanced, can be work with the modern technology. You cannot against the technology. Technology always, we need somehow to interpret your building. But some like idea can be really resolved energy waste. For example, if you think about when we built like the glass box in the Hong Kong area, right? Just can be make work. We have AC. People today just live in the inside, but actually they're not sustainable But once you have some idea, you have shade, you have overhang, you also know the sun from the south, and then when how you use the vertical, the shading facing the west or east or north, the south horizontally, and then you can, plus you use air conditioning, and then you can save a lot of energy.
Yeah.
This is what I really, not only this, the architecture, the language design, but also if you think about the architecture of nature, my design theory 5 point. The first one is seating posture. This is talking about how you choose the side, how you choose the orientation, how seating. Maybe sometimes you need a sunken into the earth. Sometimes you need a left up about earth. You have to have the feng shui sense. This is maybe associates feng shui, but it's more associates climate, the idea. Once you have good sitting, the posture, you must be safe energy in the beginning, fundamentally. And then cave and nest, how you balance that. You need to absorb in the winter, absorb the heat, and then give the cave, for example, and then they can balance everything, a sponge architecture as well. You contain the wind light. Like Imperial Kiln Museum, I'm really proud about this design. Not only create a new experience, but really they almost not use air conditioning in summer. Things they have wind tunnel, they open the window, they can really ventilate the chimney idea, wind tunnel, like each volt create wind and also a outdoor, semi-outdoor. The Jingdezhen is so hot. If you go to the summer, a lot of people hang on in the semi-outdoor space, which is open vault I create. It's a lot of wind to concentrate. I think this is we have to give some smart idea to the architecture to reduce, the energy waste to respond climate change. But this won't be necessary. We're against the technology.
Yeah. Yeah. This has to be, done smartly and
Yeah,
in combination of many different.
right. You're right.
Your projects seem to be quite diverse in terms of their forms, materiality, spatial organization. And you even said, I want to forget what I have done in the past. So what would you say is common to your projects? What are the hints to, that we could see, we could recognize Zhu Pei building?
I think for the identity point of view, people easily in the beginning through your form, right? Your architecture language. If I summarize my architecture language, it's maybe few things. One is sculptural and structural. Like a Kiln Museum, right? The vault form is completely architecture form. Like a conference camp, that structure form the arch. That's that, and also you feel the sculptural way. You feel it's not glazing, double skin or kind of a thing, more textural material. So I think sculptural, structural, and another element is roof scale. If you saw my recent solo show in 86 project, the shared sculptural, structural, material, roofscape, I think that's bring all my work together. That's the maybe identity for the architecture language. But I still believe, architecture is the art very different with painting sculpture. This is deal with very specific site, culture, geography, climate, light, everything. And then they should be specific. You cannot use one style to reflect all the project. So I think architecture of nature, if you look at difference, this 6 project located in the very different region, different climate, different culture, but actually behind the work, they share similar idea, which is rootedness and creativity. Create a tension between the tradition and the innovation.
And what would you say is an evolution in your work? What do you carry from one project to the next, or how do you progress from one project to the next?
I think each project asked me 2 things. The one thing is root, right? Somehow to associate people understood the background. Another one is revolutionary thinking. I think how I can evaluate my work start from the conceptual level. I always reject some level because I realize this is no new idea, no revolutionary idea, and then I'm going to kill it. So that's, I strongly believe if architecture is art, you must create a new thing for the people. Doesn't matter how much, even very little, but you have to create a new thing. Even like a Kiln Museum, Imperial Kiln Museum. You know, no museum like this, so much indoor, outdoor, semi-outdoor. No museum like this kind of, each vault in the different curvature, different size. But they build one very simple construction system. But I think this is kind of a revolutionary. You start to, to push the architecture into the quite limit. Things this is reason the Imperial Kiln Museum became to the most popular museum in China. This small, but in terms of visitor, it almost is the number 2 or number 3. And in the Jiangxi province, definitely number 1 for the one-day visitor. Everyday crowd of people. Why people like that? Since people never have this kind of experience.
Every time you come to a new site and deal with a new program, new brief, do you really leave what you've done before in the past, or do you take something with you?
I try to forget whatever I already have done, but I strongly believe different site, different program need a different solution. I strongly believe so. But how much I can totally forget, I don't know. But some like this kind of upside down arch, I already use maybe few times, or arch, to read things I hate. Sometimes I hate column beam solution. I want to column frame space for the public building. And then I think about what kind of a spatial form, structural form. For example, like if I compare the Majiayao Ruins Museum to talking about pottery, right? It's a Stone Age pottery. And then I ask, where's pottery come from originally? I do my understanding about where it come from pottery. I imagine, in the Louis Plateau, yellow soil area, and then they have forest, they have thunderstorm, the burning the soil, second day, the fire is gone. People realize, oh, floor is frozen became to the heart. I think this is must be the pottery come from. Difference porcelain. Porcelain, you have to use artificial installation to create, you know, the high temperature. But pottery, they naturally. So this is the reason porcelain come from China, but pottery come almost everywhere. As long as you have Pacific soil, you must be have pottery. So I think, and then when I work on this museum, I just create a piece of a shell, more like a piece of a pottery from, more sunken into the earth, and then cave nest. I think that's the solution. I always ask, even the conference camp, right? I said, okay, the valley, if artificial things get in, house looks like, and then that remind me think about village settlement. I saw the beyond the architecture, physical things. I want to see the structural spatial relationship. So this is the reason my architecture, if you see the language, another language which is based on more abstract way. I never try to make a specific, element into my work.
And so where did the form of the space come from in that particular museum?
Which museum?
Majiayao Ruins?
Majiayao. Right. I think probably you saw, right? This one piece of a shell. This is going to be amazing. Right now, I'm testing the concrete made by local things. They have a, big river called the Tao River, which is the bench river from Yellow River. And they produce very special the small pebble and the stone. I use this material create very rough concrete, which is local. But that piece of a shell represent the piece of a big pottery. What I imagine is not daily use, some the bowl or something. I thought in the beginning, the pottery from the earth. This is I really want to create a kind of the idea. Definitely cave nest is really local traditional architecture language. Things Luis Plato easy to carve out. So this is difference with Jingdezhen. Jingdezhen like you more like tropical, you build by wood. And then local more like a stone. No, it's a carve out from the soil. So I think that's to make this two museum have dramatic, very different solution, but they also deeply rooted into the Pacific side.
And so this means that you really have to spend a lot of time in each of these places before you come up with a concept, right?
Yes, yeah. I gave me, for example, I'm not allow me too quick to do sketch. No.
Okay.
Normally, I travel minimum 3 times.
Before you start your
Yeah, or
conceptual
normally
stage.
take months or 2 months. I start to really draw. Before
So
that,
this is what you tell the client from the beginning. Don't expect me to come up with a solution.
Right. For example, I'm not trying to do the work too many, right? So maybe only one certain period of time, I only work on one. But I travel back and forth. Normally I stay like a 3 day minimum, and then sometime maybe longer a week. And then I frequently, like a Jingdezhen, I don't know how many times city want to make show for my boarding pass, Beijing to Jingdezhen. The Majiayao as well. I always, every other week, I flow to the side. I try to discover the local culture, story, historical, why this part settlement ruin was discovered. Actually, Majiayao discovered by the Sweden archaeologist John Anderson in 1924. 100 years now. This is the reason they want to build a museum. I think the architect need to learn from archaeology, the sensitive. This, they have the sensitive about where's the civilization, maybe things, very special geography. Like this ruin, Majiayao ruin. The reason they locate, north is the hill, south is the canyon. They must be choose back against the hill, facing south, facing open space. They also not into the canyon. They go to flood. They into the somehow in the middle level in the beginning, like a second terrace, in order to not flood. And the same moment they close to the river water. So I think this is sensitivity. This knowledge going to give you a lot of creativity, inspiration. So without rediscover, without attention, patience, you never can come out some deep thinking. So this is what I really, start I feel very relaxed. I think I want to see the new thing, archaeology. I see many the geography standing on the top of the hill. I understood this is why here. So, and then I think about why the cave so much in this local. This is geography, this climate, why so differently? And then you start to think about, I start to ask myself, where's the pottery original come from? And then I can imagine I composed, maybe no archaeologist to prove my idea, but maybe I strongly believe so. And then I start to draw. Normally, my sketch start from section. That's or set plan. Most of it start from section. Like Majiayao, I draw the section, which is more like a cave nest, one in behind, one in front. Most of even like Imperial Kiln, I draw the section first. I want to create this kind of a vault, content the porcelain. I feel this is a good way. So I think that's, time, patience, discover, go deeper. Rootedness never to against your creativity. Like Le Corbusier, when he getting old, he realized nothing else your creative actually is come from the history, past experience. So I strongly believe this is what I approach.
So you probably work on one project at a time, right?
Huh?
You work on one project at a time, right?
Maybe multi. For example, normally I work on for example, like a site visit, and the same moment, another one maybe work on the DD level development, another maybe field construction side. Currently, just the last few weeks, I create another amazing project. Really great. It's more like a kind of once again, also I create very special things. I feel so excited when I, recently, but it's not the many like concept design, multi-concept design together. I want to somehow one first and then one second.
Oh, you mean as far as the versions, right? So you're talking about different versions. So you typically
No, I'm talking about the difference.
projects.
When the say different product. One moment for the concept, I just focus on one. After this one come, I think about another one.
So your firm is relatively small, right? You probably
Very,
have
very small.
dozen
After
people.
after I go to CAFA, my office shrink. Right now around 10 people.
10 people.
Even smaller than sometimes. Some
And,
are more intern and yeah.
and what's the main reason for teaching?
Uh, I never stopped the teaching for my career, right? In the beginning, I'm teacher in Tsinghua, and then I go outside. But the later on, I teach different school, Columbia, later on Harvard, Yale. But I never stop. But it's not every day. Maybe every other year, one semester, or maybe only one semester. But it's like a part-time teaching. Things I strongly believe. Teaching is also learning. You have your sensitive things to attach the avant-garde things, and not cutting, isolate yourself. And then the reason I can't take offer, from CAFA, I think the job in China very differently. The dean have the power to change the things. And CAFA also is art school, really fit my philosophy. And also roughly small, small boat can turn to different the direction, right? In the last 6 years, I changed dramatically, you know, for the School of Architecture CAFA. From the academic the point of view, more focus
Experience.
on architecture
Okay.
rather than broad, more talking about, you know, architecture, more focus on architecture, use more like a, uh, natural philosophy, which is inspired by the Chinese or science, to create something intelligent architecture, sustainable architecture, rather than technology oriented. I think I turned this, it's not to follow the big university. I'm not trying to, we used to follow, but now I said, no follow. We do by ourselves. I think this is the difference. I think art school have the soil. Our school small, also have the soil to want to make architecture is art. I think that's the the common sense now for all the faculty, leader of the CAFA. Everybody know, okay, CAFA School of Architecture want to create the artistic art approach based on the, the nature, or, the passive way rather than artistic way, rather than technology engineer way. CAFA is not a professional school. They're going to getting smaller, but cultivate the people want to be artists, want to be, you know, the architect.
So architects and artists work very closely together. And are you the dean of the school, which includes artists and architecture, or just architecture school?
Just architecture school.
But artists are right next to
CAFA,
you.
right? But we join a lot of common class. Also, we work with like sculpture department, design school, also the painting, painting making, even Chinese landscape painting. We share a lot of class. Even, I create a kind of recreate a very special curricular system for the School of Architecture CAFA. I call the fishbone curricular system, which is we used to students really struggling. Things when we designed the house and then structured class talking about industrial truss, and then maybe physical class talking about acoustic. I think totally against each other. Right now, for the college, for the undergraduate, I use design studio. Okay, all the structure class, material class, physical class, technical class, you have to base on the topic of studio to teaching your class. For example, when you design a small museum, don't talking about industrial, high-rise building, no, the structure. You're just talking about how structural type, how you create a small-scale building. It's not only column B, not steel. We also have wood. We also have concrete. We also have, vault. We also arch, dome. So many, the structure system. But our Chinese education problem right now, most of the students never realized actually structural form is so important for the architect. You need to understand. You not try to engage calculation. We're talking about those things too much, but lose the sense what is concept, structural system. So I use one studio, bring all the course class together and the same space, same moment, even the history class, right? We're talking about history. We have general history class, but when we design a small house, why are you not talking about, okay, La Savoy? Why you not following water house or singular house, right? But we used to, they talking about maybe differently. But right now I want to them same pace. And then student, through the design studio, they learn everything. And then I also cutting a lot of course class, let people feel freedom, don't depress, or enjoy. You have to really like architecture learning. Architecture education is not try to give you more knowledge. No, education not equal to knowledge. Education is a cultivation, it's a perception, is a continuous historical. You have to know the history. You have to know the culture, right? So I think that's the mainly college supposed to be. I'm not trying to go, okay, from small scale, our curricular used to be from small scale to the big scale, from the one single small building to the multi-function building, theater, factory, whatever, high rise. No, I said no. As long as your understanding give you more free time to join, to learn more class, to know more knowledge, to cultivate yourself. I think without understanding about history, how you change architectural construction culture history or art history, you cannot be good architect.
Yeah, you also need to be there needs to be some kind of spark about wanting to learn continuously, because it's a never-ending.
Yeah, especially for the career of architects. The architects, when they understood how to doing their creation very late, maybe after 40 or even later, most of it maybe 50 or 60. So I have to let students, all like undergraduate school, graduate school, first class is I teach that class. I'm not trying to doing the PPT. It's just a dialogue with you. What is architecture means to us, to today? what is architecture? You know, this art difference with, you know, difference with other things. This is not a engineer, not a technology. They including many things, not only. So I think first class, I have to let students to understand this is a like long learning process. It's not a right you graduate, you can be architects. I said, no hope. Okay, if you feel you don't great, don't learn architecture. You have to be patient. You have to prepare. You have to love architecture.
Yeah. Thank you.